This is Nurse of Death, the Lucy Letby story, a gripping true crime podcast that takes you deep into the chilling tale of allegations against Lucy Letby, a seemingly caring and dedicated nurse who harbored a dark secret. Join us as we unravel the twisted journey of a medical professional whose actions sent shockwaves throughout the healthcare community. It's the story of a nurse who went from saving lives to becoming the harbinger of death. This is Nurse of Death, the Lucy Letby story. The Manchester Crown Court is currently the scene of a chilling case, where 33-year-old nurse Lucy Letby stands accused of multiple baby murders. Letby, who denies the charges, had been working at the Countess of Chester Hospital's Neo-natal unit, where several infants suffered unexplained collapses. Dr. Lucy Letby, a GP who had been present at the unit, provided testimony detailing her observations of Letby. According to Dr. Letby, she saw a distraught Letby conversing with a colleague in one of the care rooms. Letby recalled Letby sobbing as she said, "It's always me when it happens. My babies, it's always happening to me a lot." Prosecutor Philip Asbury questioned Dr. Letby about the incident, asking her to confirm that it was indeed Letby who made the remark. Dr. Letby replied affirmatively, though she could not remember the exact date of the occurrence. The prosecution alleges that Letby murdered child I, a prematurely born girl, in the early hours of October 23, 2015. They claim this to be her fourth attempt at deliberately harming the baby, following earlier incidents on September 30, October 13, and 14. Dr. Letby recounted her care for child I during her time as a GP trainee doctor at the Countess of Chester. "I recall child I, because it was unusual that she was seemingly well and then became unwell," Dr. Letby said. "In my memory, I felt like she was shipped out to a tertiary center, made a rapid recovery, and then was brought back very quickly." Dr. Letby expressed shock and frustration upon learning of child I's death, stating, "It was sad because I remember the family and the whole situation was just very sad and frustrating." She also agreed with defense attorney Ben Myers that Letby's tearful exchange seemed like a normal reaction given the upsetting events at the hospital. Another nurse, Ashley Hudson, broke down in tears as she testified about an incident involving Letby and baby I. According to Hudson, Letby had told her that baby I looked pale, despite being 6 feet away from the infant, whose cot was in a darkened room with the top half covered by a canopy. Hudson described the situation saying, "Lucy was in the doorway. We were talking. I don't remember the content of the conversation. Then, she said she thought, 'Baby, I looked pale.'" Hudson estimated that Letby was standing 5 or 6 feet away at the time. In response to questions from prosecutor Simon Driver, Nurse Hudson detailed the lighting in the room. The main light for the room was switched off, but the light in the corridor was on. "So you were able to do things in the room and have enough light to see where your patients were and where the equipment was." Upon hearing Letby's comment about baby I looking pale, Hudson switched on the main light and went to examine the infant. "I couldn't see her. I could see that she was in the cot, but I couldn't see the top half because she was covered by the canopy. I switched the main light on," she said. Nurse Hudson described the state of baby I, saying, "At first she seemed not to be breathing at all, but then she was gasping. Rather than a regular respiratory pattern, it was a one-off, a very deep, gasping breath." Hudson revealed that baby I was making the gasping sounds, maybe 4 to 5 times a minute. She continued, "I didn't stop to examine her for longer than maybe 20 seconds before we started to intervene. My first thought was that she deteriorated so rapidly that I was too late. The change in her from shortly prior was remarkable. It was very surprising." Hudson knew she needed to stimulate the baby, so she began speaking to her. "Obviously, Lucy was in the doorway, and she came to the cot side to assist," she said. "Either Hudson or Letby put out a crash call, and while other medical professionals rushed to the room, they began trying to resuscitate baby I. I used the Neopuff on the wall behind her. I gave her breaths to stimulate breathing. Then Lucy took over the airway, and I moved on to chest compressions. Nurse Hudson recounted. Dr. Matthew Neame and 2 senior nurses responded to the crash call. Since Hudson was the least experienced medic in the room, she took a step back. She initially assisted Dr. Neame with the airway, giving some ventilation breaths before leaving to contact the parents. The defense team, led by Ben Myers, has attempted to portray Letby's emotional reactions as normal given the distressing circumstances at the hospital. They continue to build their case, while the prosecution relies on testimonies and evidence to establish a pattern of deliberate harm to infants by Letby. This is Nurse of Death, the Lucy Letby story, a gripping true crime podcast that takes you deep into the chilling tale of allegations against Lucy Letby, a seemingly caring and dedicated nurse who harbored a dark secret. Join us as we unravel the twisted journey of a medical professional whose actions sent shockwaves throughout the healthcare community. It's the story of a nurse who went from saving lives to becoming the harbinger of death. This is Nurse of Death, the Lucy Letby story.